I was sitting in the back thinking about what I was going to share. I was thinking, why is football so important to us? And I listened to Rodney when he shared, and I think Rodney's a great coach, and he does a great program. And it's neat to hear those things. And the things that he wrote over here about faith and family and education, I think those are the things, those are the reasons why we do it. And so in the time that I'm going to have to talk to you, because again, I may never get a chance to share with you guys again, in my lifetime or yours. And so the things that I want to say to you are from the heart, and they're important to me. And I think that the reason that we coach, whether it's a high school coach or where you coach, I think all it is, it's about using football as a tool to build men. I really think that's what it comes down to. And I don't think that we do it. I love to win. I played at Lakeland High School for Coach Castle. He's won 400 games, was the coach of the century. And I learned to love to win and to hate to lose. But I learned that it's not about the winning and the losing why we do it. It's really to make a difference in young men's lives. And so what I wanted to share with you guys this morning was I was going to share with you the 6 pillars of our program and where we get these thoughts from. And I think a lot of times when you hear about a Popka, you hear some things and you think, wow, it's this, it's that, or whatever. But I'm going to let you inside our thoughts as a coaching staff and the way we built our program, what it's about. And the reason why I want to do that for you is I think you can take the same things, whether all of it or bits and pieces, and you can share it with your young men, and you can make their lives better. And then they in turn learn to serve others and make others better, their families, their communities, the people they're around. So my talk's a whole lot more about intangibles than anything else. When you think of a Popka, I think a lot of people comes to mind, they think about discipline. There's some stories out there about we do this, we do that, we have a pit, this and that, and I think we are disciplined, but I think that when I think about discipline, and again, every pillar of our program, we've tried to take something from the Bible and built on that. And so Hebrews 12:11 says, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness by those who are trained by it. And so when our young men come into our program, they're ninth graders, and they're not mature, and they're going to make bad decisions. And like Coach Wells said, when our guys come down to our building, the earrings are out. They sit in the front row of their classes. They say yes sir or no ma'am. And our teachers like to have our kids in class. Whereas a lot of times, when I first got to Popka, it wasn't that way. The teachers did not like the football players, and now they really do like it. And they say that we can root for y'all on Friday night because we can root for you in the classroom on Monday through Friday. And that was a great compliment. But we go places in 2 lines, and sometimes people make fun of that. But again, we're always trying to make it about being unified and being disciplined and making the right decisions. And I think a lot of times people think, well, they must have 37,000 rules and this and that. And guys, we don't have any rules. We don't even have a single rule. Our thing is we have expectations for our young men, and they know that if they don't meet the expectations, there's going to be consequences. But we don't have to tell them, don't skip class, avoid using drugs. We don't have to tell them those things. That's right and wrong, and kids know that. That's bred into them by their parents, or just innate knowledge of that. So the first thing we build things on is going to be discipline. We want to be disciplined on the field, but more importantly, we want to be disciplined off the field. When we do our workouts, we start our workouts in the summer at 5 p.m. And at 5:01, it's over. If a young man comes in at 5:01, he goes home. We don't have lates, we have misses. And they've got to make so many workouts in the summer, they have to make them up. And so we're trying to teach them these things to make them better, because when they get out into a job, you can't come late to your job all the time. You can't do all those things. And again, my thought on the whole thing is this. I'd love to have guys go on to play college football, but more importantly, I want to teach guys how to do life. I love what Coach Wells said about the coaches that influenced his life. The coaches that took him on his trips and taught him how to eat at a restaurant, probably taught him how to shake hands, taught him about Christ. These are things that we get to do, and you guys know the clientele you're dealing with. A lot of times they don't have mom and dad, or the situation's bad, and we're the influential person in their life. I think that's a great responsibility. So number one with us is always discipline. Number 2 comes from Proverbs 14:23. It says, all hard work yields a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. Okay, we've got to teach them how to work. Our kids take pride in hard work. I think our off-season program is outstanding. Our guys are strong and they're tough. They're physically, they're mentally tough, and we teach them how to work. And our practices in the springtime, they are long, and we get after it. And we don't ever practice in shorts. Every day of the week we practice in pads, including on Thursdays before the game. And we try to be physically tough, but we teach them that it's about hard work. It's not about talk. The ones that just talk, those are the ones that the Bible says that they're going to lead to poverty. So we got to teach them how to work hard. And again, that translates straight into life. If you're a man or a woman and you're working at your job and you're working hard, you're going to be blessed. Whereas if you're lazy and you cut corners, then you're not. And so again, it's another life principle, but I think that hard work is really important. And I don't think it's inherent nowadays. I think that if you guys look at it, when I look out there at you guys, most of y'all, I grew up playing football in the yard or in the park. We played tackle football without pads on. And, kids nowadays kind of like, oh my God, you'll get a concussion. I know a little bit about concussions. But I think kids, even 10 years ago, they were growing up and they were on the PlayStation, you know what I'm saying? And at least they were playing Madden or NCAA or something. Nowadays, I don't even think they play football. They play Call of Duty, they play Black Ops, they play, Grand Theft Auto. They're not even involved with football. I hate to say this, but I think if you were to check a Saturday afternoon in Apopka, there wouldn't be a lot of my players watching NCAA games on TV like I watched every game growing up and still do. I think that kids play football now, but I think that we probably grew up living football a little bit more than this generation. And so again, they don't know how to work hard. Okay, they don't know how to finish drills. They don't know how to push through things when it's hard. You look at guys in the weight room, and a guy will be benching, and a guy's over there with him. He's just like doing this with the bar. I'm like, why are you touching the bar? He doesn't need a spot. That's for the last rep when he can't get it, not for all 8. And so again, I think that kids are not used to working hard, and I think we have to teach them how to work hard. So point number 2 would be that hard work does yield a profit. Now, the next point comes from Galatians 6:9, says, don't grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time you'll reap a harvest if you don't give up. And that is so true on an individual level, but also on a team level. You guys know how in life, in football, I drove in today and I saw those little kids out there in their uniforms. I'm thinking, man, it's not even August yet, and they're in pads, and it's hot, and there's going to be a lot of disappointments. And I think back to coaching my sons and coaching kids for 27 years, and there's a lot of disappointment, But I don't ever remember a kid quitting football and coming up to me later and saying, Coach, I am so glad I quit. That was the best thing I ever did. Come back 5 years later. When I quit, my life just took off. Now, I've had a lot of them that quit and came back, Coach, it was the worst thing worst decision I ever made. But, they still say that some of the ones you're the hardest on, they're the ones that, you make the biggest impact in their life. Now, how this applies to teams is this. I've learned this recently. In 2012, we started off the season 1-2. Coach Wells' team beat our heads in. Now the score was like 35-17 or something. It wasn't that close. It was 35-3. And I think Coach pulled out all of his starters. And we were 1-2. Our quarterback was hurt. And we weren't just bad on the football field. We didn't have any intangibles. We didn't have leadership. We didn't have followership. We were a mess. And we kept on hammering it, and we would punish kids for not leading and not communicating. Because, again, I think leadership is just communication. Whether it be, who's got cut back, and who's got comp, and who's got contain. That's leadership, if you open your mouth. But it's also demanding accountability from each other. And, guys, I think that leadership is another thing that nowadays we don't see as much of. Because in our society, everything now is built on tolerance. Have y'all noticed that? Everything's okay. Things that the Bible says are dead wrong are okay, which is scary to me. But that's how our society is. And so I don't want to come up to you and say, hey, man, you didn't finish that sprint. You got to go better than that. Because you might turn right around to me, well, I saw you in the weight room. You cut a rep last week. You see, People are scared to lead because they feel that someone's going to call them on their stuff. You see, because they want to be popular. They want to be liked. And I've always said to our young men, it's better to be respected than liked. As a man, would you rather be respected or liked? I assume you'll pick respected. Okay? You'll be liked by the right people if you're respected by those that you impact. And so I think that leadership is a tough thing to happen. But we finally got that thing flipped. And in 2012, we went from 1-2, and we ended up winning the state championship. And then in 2014, that season we lost 3 games in October. Now, guys, if you lose in August or September, you got a chance. But when you lose 3 in October, put a fork in you. You're dead. I mean, it's like over. Okay, you can't recover from that. And I remember the week before the playoffs started, we had an open week, and we had a film session. And I just remember it wasn't right. It just wasn't, the heart wasn't right. And I sent them out, and I kept Martez Ivey and Chandler Cox. I kept them with me, and I said, you won a state title as sophomores. You played for one as juniors, but now you're seniors. And we're 6-4. We barely got in the playoffs. 3 losses in October. You're not going to be remembered for those 2 ones before you. You're going to be remembered for your senior year, for your legacy. What are we going to do about this, man? And I sent them off, and I went to practice thinking this is going to be bad. And something flipped that day. Everything changed at practice. I don't know why. We practiced better. Everything was great. Got in there the first round against Oviedo. We're down in the 4th quarter. Came back, won the game, ended up tearing through the playoffs, won another state championship. But there was no 15-0s there. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen a 15-0. We're the only team in state history, I think, to win a state championship with 4 losses. And then you have the other one in 2012 that we were 1-2 to start. 2001, Edgewater beat us. We ended as district runner-up. Okay, so we've won 3 state championships. We've never won a district title and a state championship the same year. We've always been the district runner-up. And so I think that you can't grow weary in doing good, because you're going to reap the harvest if you don't give up. So what I learned in those years was, if I don't give up on the kids, they won't give up on each other. They won't give up on the coaches. But we can't ever let them know, you guys are no good. We're just not going to get it done. I might have felt that, but I faked it. Okay, and they believed me, and then it all turned. So I think we have to keep on teaching them not to quit, to keep on fighting through when it's tough. And I think those things are going to be reaping the harvest down the road. The next thing I wanted to share was, this is really special to me, or important to me. And when I say this to our kids, they repeat it with me. They know this verse. They say it with me. But it's James 4:6. It says, God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. Now, guys, you don't see a lot of humble nowadays, do you, on say, professional or college athletes. You see guys driving up at the opening and committing to a school in a Lamborghini. High school player. You see guys on TV all about me, and it's like the more they talk about me, the more the world looks at them, and the more celebrity or publicity they get. And guys, that's just upside down. That's not how life is. Think about it right now. If you were in your job and someone was always talking about me, would you even be attracted to that person? That doesn't attract people. God says that you'll be blessed if you're humble. And so humble's not thinking less about yourself. It's thinking not about yourself. It's thinking about other people. We had a big senior meeting at camp 2 weeks ago. 3-hour meeting. And all we talked about was servant leadership. Jesus said the greatest among you will be your servant. If you want to be a leader, you must serve others. And that's what he did. And he washed his disciples' nasty, dirty feet. Okay, and we talk about if you want to be a leader, you have to serve. But again, that's so foreign to what kids grow up in. And so humility and honor go together in that when you win, there's glory enough for everybody. But when you lose, does anyone care who caught the touchdown or who made the tackles? Okay, so it comes back to always being a team game. And so I think that's important. So number 1 is discipline. Okay, number 2 is we have to teach them to work hard. Number 3, we have to teach them not to give up. Number 4, we have to teach them to be humble. Okay, now when I first came to Apopka High School, I wanted to pin something on the program. It was 1999, and I wanted to have something to hang our hat on, that our kids would know. And so we came up with Proverbs 22:1. It says, a good name is to be more desired than great riches. Favor is better than silver and gold. And when you think about that as a man or as a lady, your name, okay, you get 3 names, we say. Your first name and your last name were given to you by your parents. But the name you make for yourself, that's the name you don't want to mess up. So you always want to have a good name. When the teacher looks at the roll and sees your name on there, they want to go, okay, I'm glad I got him in class. He'll be in the front row. He'll solve problems. He'll make sure we don't have foolishness in class. So again, my prayer for our team is that when people think about Apopka High School, they think about a good name. They don't think, well, they play dirty, or they cheat, or they're arrogant. I hope they don't think that. And if they do, that's something we have to change. Okay, because that's not what we want. That's not what's going to honor God. That's not going to make Apopka proud. That's not going to make our parents proud. When you think about your children, what do you want for your children? You want your children to be humble, to work hard, to not quit. Okay, you want them to have a good name. And so when I talk to parents, which is not often, I'm not one to talk too much to parents, but I don't ever think a parent and I are going to be on a different page. Like I'm going to say, your son's got to work hard. No, Coach, I want him to be lazy. No one says that. Your son, he's not working very hard in the class. I don't want him to work hard in the classroom. I don't want him to get an 80 for Coach Wells. I want him to get D's and F's. Parents don't think that way. They want what we want. Okay, our methods of getting things are somewhat very old-fashioned. We're going to be harsh with them. We're going to punish them. I've got a staff of like-minded men that all believe the same things, and that's what's so great is it's not just me. I've got 10 other guys with the same eyes, and so if I'm over here looking at this and there's a problem over here, they solve the problem. And so I think a like-minded staff at your level is absolutely crucial. And then the last thing I want to share with you about what's important to me about football, and it's to our program, but it's your program and your children too. Okay, and people know this about Apopka is Hokahay. People say, what's Hokahay? Okay, Hokahay, it's a Sioux Indian term, and it means it is a great day to die. Now, when I say that to people, their eyes kind of get big. A great day to die. Well, there's 2 parts to that. Number one, we want the Sioux would chant that, Crazy Horse and the Sioux would chant that when they went into battle. Because what were they battling for? They're battling for their freedom, for their way of life, for their families, for their land, for everything they lived and believed in. They were willing to die for that. And so you think about this, there's things in life worth dying for. You would die for your family. You would die for your wife or your husband or your children. You would die for certain things. Because when you live a life of honor, there's things that are bigger than you. I think that's so crucial is that young people can't just be about them. That's such a narrow, selfish, shallow existence when it's just about you. When you try to make it about other people and make them impact, bless them. I've got 2 sons in college football. One just finished. One's got 3 years left. And the things I talk to them about all the time are this. It's not about being successful. Okay? No one cares how many yards you throw for, the tackles you make. Successful might be money, notoriety, fame, wealth, possessions. That's successful, right? That's not what life's about, in my opinion. Life's about being significant. Significant and successful could go hand in hand, but they often don't. Successful could be shallow. Significant is this. You make a positive impact in the lives of other people. The people you touch, you impact them. I'm talking to Zach yesterday in the car. He's home for the weekend from Nebraska. And, his career didn't go the way we wanted it to go. Won a state championship as a junior, lost his senior season to a concussion, went to Nebraska, the coaching staff changed, the new staff had different ideas about quarterback. He's a great athlete. They asked him to play receiver. He's doing that. But he's just going, I just don't feel like I'm making an impact like I did at Apopka. And I go, Zach, you got 3 years left. Okay? Think about the people you've been around. Last weekend, his best friend, their punter, was killed in a car wreck. And so Zach calls me, he's just in tears. Why did God take him? Why did God take him? Great character teammate. Man of integrity. Everybody in Nebraska loves Sam Foltz. Zach was hanging out with him in his locker Friday before they all left for the weekend. Sam never comes back. But he impacted so many.
And when the TV stations came in there having a vigil and they wanted someone to talk about Sam Foltz, they asked Zach to talk about it. And he shared the gospel. He shared how you can get to heaven. He said, I can see Sam again because I know Christ, and he does too. I think my son's making an impact. It's not about if you see him on TV making a play. It's about impacting the lives of the people around you. And I think that's what we can teach our young people, whether it's Pop Warner, basketball, baseball, whatever. If we can teach to be successful or impactful in the lives of others, that's what it's about. And so Hoka goes with John 15:13. It says, no greater love has a man than he would lay down his life for his friends. And so when you talk about dying, and it's a good day to die, it's like, are you living your life in such a way that you're ready for that? You know, if you're a young person, Sam Foltz didn't know he was going to die. He got in the car and went up to Wisconsin for a punting camp. They're coming home. It's late at night. They come over a curve, didn't know the terrain, hit a tree, car exploded. He's dead. He's in heaven now, but are our young people ready for that? Can they say it's a good day to die? And that's something to think about, and I think that's something we have a responsibility to share if that's what we believe. I'm going to tell you about one player, and then I'm going to be done, okay? But I'm going to share how these things come together, okay? When Martez Ivey was in middle school, he kept walking the track around our school. And the middle school back then was our old 9th grade center, okay? And so that's where the middle school was because they were rebuilding Apopka Middle. And that big rascal would be walking that track every day. And I kept on asking people, when's that guy coming? Well, he'll be here next year, Coach. Okay, so next year comes around, and there's Tez walking the track. When's he coming? Okay, well, he'll be here next year. Y'all said next year twice, okay? So what's the problem? Well, Coach, he keeps failing. He kept failing middle school. Now, I'm thinking, how does someone fail middle school twice? If he's that bad, wouldn't you just kind of push him on through to get him out of the way? But the Joker kept failing middle school. So finally he gets to us, okay? And the first thing I did was I went straight to the office because I had to check his age, right, Rod? Because I'm thinking this Joker's going to be like 22 years old when he graduates, okay? So I check him out. He's born in July. He's going to turn 19 right before his senior year. The rule's 19 years, 9 months. We're good to go. Probably can't throw track discus, but he can play football for 4, right? And I didn't know what he's going to be like. So I'm in his folder and I'm looking at him, right? Okay, he's going to be okay on age, barely. He's probably not real smart. He's probably lazy. He's 6'4", 225 as a freshman. He's probably had a lot of smoke blown up his butt about how great he is and how about all these things I've talked to you about don't really matter for him because he's really special and talented. Don't we cripple kids when we do that? When we take the best kid and say your rules are different because you're really good, you're not so good. Okay, so I'm going to have all these rules for you. It's like Rod said. Who cares if you discipline the third string receiver? If you discipline the quarterback, that gets people's attention. So you got to treat the best players the hardest. Especially, please, at your level, do that. Because otherwise they come to Rodney or me or Ben and they're crippled. They come in there crippled because they think the world revolves around them, and it doesn't. Life doesn't work that way. So I check in Tez's folder. 47 disciplinary referrals in middle school. Y'all understand what I'm saying? That's a lot of problems. 47 times that big sucker was sent to the office, okay? And so I'm thinking, okay, so I got a stupid, lazy, old problem on my hands. And so the Joker walks in, he's in the weight room the first day of school, and I go up to him, and I've never spoken to him before in my life. And I go up to him, and I go, how you doing? He goes, something like that, you know. And I go, you know, I checked you out, and unless you'd have a total change and transformation of your heart and life, you'll never play it down at this school. I just want you to know that. Welcome to Apopka. And I walked away. And this Joker's just like, what did that man just say to me? You know, because no one's ever talked to him like that, I'm sure. And so the next day, I'm driving into school, and I see this young man walk into school late. So I walk into weight class. I go, Tez, you got pit after school today. I got what? I go, you got pit after school today. You were late to school. Okay, so we took him out. We have a place on our field. It's called a pit. It's a drainage ditch. We go in there. We do creative counseling with them, and we do things with them to make them understand that they should not be late to school. Okay, so Tez came out of the pit. He was dirty. Okay, he kind of looked like, Sasquatch or the Legend of Boggy Creek or something. Dirt all over him. So the next day I get an email from his English teacher. Coach, that young man you asked us to keep tabs on, because see, that's what our teachers do. They know if you're a football player, if you'll let Coach D know, we'll have no problems, or we'll solve the problems, okay? So that young man you asked me to check on didn't turn in his English assignment. Not a problem, ma'am. He'll get that in. Walk down to the weight room. Tez, you're in the pit today. What'd I do? You didn't turn in your English assignment. Oh, man. Okay? And so Tez was in the pit every day, guys. Every day the sucker lived in that pit. Okay, and one day I walk out there to the pit, and I have other kids in the pit. It ain't just a Tez thing. And this little squirrely kid, I go, "Where's Tez?" He says he ain't doing the pit no more. And I look at that joker like I'm gonna snap his neck, and he just goes, "That's what he said." And I go, "Which way did he go?" He went that way. So there's a road in Apopka going from the school down to 441 called Main Avenue. It's Maine. So I get in my truck and I drive, and there goes the Sasquatch out there in front of me. It looked like a Jack Link's commercial, you know what I'm saying? And there he is. And so I pull my truck up in front of him, and I roll down the passenger window, and I said, "Tez, I believe you're headed the wrong direction, because the pit's that way." And he goes, "No, man, that teacher, she be tripping, man. She be green." Fat Daddy, you heard those things? Okay. So he's talking about tripping teachers and green and stuff. I'm thinking, I don't care about your teacher's balance. Okay, but what I care about is, that's the pit. You're going the wrong way. So you need to make a decision here. And I said, if you keep walking that way, not only will you not play football at high school, you might be giving away college. You might be giving away the professional football you think you're going to play. So I suggest you make the right decision. Now, a good coach would get him in the car and take him back. Rodney, I ain't that guy. So I drove the other way. Now I'm holding my breath because I'm looking in the rearview mirror, and I see the joker just standing there like this, his arms down to his side. He's just sitting there. I'm thinking, "Oh God, what have I done?" And finally he turned around and he walked back, and we never had a problem with him again. I don't think he ever went to the pit again. He finally got it right. So when he's a sophomore, the state comes in with this rule change. 19 years after September 1st, and you can't play. I go, "Oh, no, you ain't doing that to my boy now. He's got a 2.8 GPA by this time. Teachers like him. He's working hard. Okay, he started for us. He's starting to, put it together that football and academics go together." And so I went to the state, and I stood before their board of directors. I say, "Listen, I don't care if the rule's 17. Okay, but when you have a guy in high school halfway through, you can't change the rule on him. We would have figured out a way to get him out in 3 if you would have told us this was the rule. So you got to grandfather him in." And they did. They said, "You're right." And so he got to play all 4 years. So we go on, and what we did, and one of the things in our program we did for the last 3 years, we took our players on a mission trip to the Bahamas. Now, we don't get to go on the boats and the casinos. We go to the inner city. We build things, paint things, okay? We do football camps, and we try to take these kids that think they're hard, okay? And they go down there and realize there ain't no cell phones, there ain't no PlayStations, okay? You ain't got it so bad. And what we do, one of the things we do, we go to this orphanage. Now, these kids aren't going to get picked up. It's called the Bahamas Emergency Hostel, okay? And these kids are in there, and they ain't getting picked up. There's crippled kids in there. There's kids that are 18 years old. They're about to get kicked out on the street. So we take our football team in there, and we're in there and had a great time, impactful, changed lives, changed their lives, but here, changed our lives, okay? I'm walking away from that thing on a Sunday. We're about to leave, and this little kid comes running up to me. Coach, happy Father's Day." This orphan who has no father is happily wishing me happy Father's Day. I didn't even realize it was Father's Day. And this kid's all full of joy. And I'm thinking, it broke my heart. Matt Anderson, my D-line coach, over here just crying on a fence. I mean, it changes lives when you go down there and see that people don't have what you think is important. Okay, our culture's so different. And so Tez was there and got pictures of him. He's shoveling, he's doing this and that. So the next summer, we're going to go back. Well, the coaches' kids all go back. I made my kids go. All of our coaches' kids went. I took my wife, my daughters. We all went, right? Well, only one player went back. Okay, we had a bunch of new players go, but the other ones, one went back for the second time around, and that was Tez. Well, he had to give up the Rivals 5-star challenge in Baltimore to go. And I'm thinking, that's who he is. You see? It's not about him. He's playing soccer with orphans in the Bahamas instead of being praised and lauded on by the media in Baltimore. And guys, that's why we won the dang state championship the next year, because of guys like him and Chandler Cox. It wasn't about them. When your best players are your best people, that's when you got it made. Okay? When the best players are your best people, they will pull the team to wherever you want them to go. And that's what those two jokers did. And so this is who he is. So he goes off to Florida. He has knee surgery in the preseason. He still starts 8 games. Both shoulders surgeries after the season. So he comes home, and their defensive coordinator, Jeff Collins, says, Coach McElwain made us rank our players from 1 through 60. Okay, Coach Saban always did that. Coach Meyer did that. We got to rank them. And I wanted you to know this. The top 5 players were defensive players. But Tez was number 8. And this is a freshman with 2 broke shoulders and a knee surgery. Guys, he's going to be that guy hugging Roger Goodell in a couple years. I've never had that guy before. I'll never have him since. We've got 2 offensive tackles right now that have Division I offers. You say, well, how are they? They ain't Tez. There will never be another Tez, okay? He's just a once-in-a-lifetime player. But he's a once-in-a-lifetime person. And so I said, Tez, how's Florida? How's the SEC? You know what Tez said? It ain't like here. What do you mean? He goes, they don't love us like y'all do. They don't care about us. They don't make us do right. It's all a business. My sons have said that. They played at Oklahoma, Nebraska. It's not the same. And so I said, well, how are you going to change it? He goes, when they graduate. Because he's talking about guys didn't want to be in the bowl game when Michigan beat their heads in. They're talking about agents and the draft and this and that and one more time for free time. They didn't want to play the bowl game. They didn't care about that. They didn't care about winning for Florida. I go, Tez, how are you going to change it when they graduate? And I just went off on it. That's not why they signed you. They signed you because of your character and your leadership and who you are. No, I was lying. They signed him because he's a freak. But I said to Tez, I go, you can change it. You're there. God put you there to change that program. And if you think it was special where you were in high school, then you can make that now. The teams that win at any level are the ones that have that type of camaraderie and closeness. But Tez and all my players, when they come home, they will sit there and they'll tell our players, it is not like Apopka. Michigan, Nebraska, Ohio State, all these places, they will say it's not like Apopka. And Rodney's are going to say they ain't like DP. Ben's are going to say it's not like with you at a Coe, coach. And so my point is this. The best times of these kids' lives, okay, for me, I think it's high school, but for you guys, you're building them. And so when Rodney said that about his coaches, did all y'all get that? That's you. That's who you are. You're going to make that impact on these kids out here. You're going to change their lives. It's not about the defense. That sucker teams always play good defense. But you know why? He could line up in a 3-7-1 defense. They play good. They play good because of him, because he demands that they play good. It's about the coaches, guys. Think about this now. A coach takes people where they can't go by themselves, right? That's what you've got to be. Not only on the field, but in school, in the community, in home, hopefully for eternal life. You can take them where they can't go themselves. Your role is so crucial. And in society today, where everything's okay, and where people don't have all the character qualities that we like to have when we were growing up, you're the ones that are going to teach it to them. So don't ever think, I'm just a youth football coach. think this: I am a youth football coach. I'm going to be significant and impactful in the lives of those kids I touch every day. And when you approach it that way, you're going to change lives forever. Guys, thanks so much for listening to me.